be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
When Jesus heard of the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself. The crowds heard of this and followed him on foot from their towns. When he disembarked, he saw a vast crowd. His heart was moved with pity for them, and he cured their sick. When it was evening, the disciples approached him and said, "This is a deserted place, and it is already late. Dismiss the crowds so that they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves." He said to them, "There is no need for them to go away. Give them some food yourselves." But he said to them, 5 loaves and 2 fish are all we have here." Then he said, "Bring them here to me." And he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he said the blessing, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who in turn gave them to the crowds. They all ate and were satisfied, and they picked up the fragments and fragments left over, 12 wicker baskets full. Those who ate were about 5,000 men, not counting women and children. The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I am here. Really, my intention was visiting my 96-year-old mother, which I will do today, and I was there yesterday. So being here at the Apostolic Family Consecration, I can't dismiss the memory I had with Jerry Conkler, and we had dinner at the Franciscan Friary at that time, and he was talking about the at that time set up and what he was planning to start here. And so it's wonderful to see those fruits. I think it's been about 20 years of when I was first ordained. I had a chance to come by here again, but before I was a priest, I met Jerry, and a wonderful time. Remembrance, anyway, it was an honor. And to get to the point, before visiting my mom, I had the opportunity of going to 2 conferences at Franciscan, and the theme was the Jubilee year, which I thought, it's kind of obscure, but I think it's very pertinent to the gospel today, and also a little bit to the first reading. Every 50 years, 7 years, 7 times 7 is 49, and another one is 50, is the Jubilee year. And it was in the Jubilee year that all debts would be forgiven. The land will be returned to its original owner. In other words, if the owner had to sell the land because of a shortage of money, it would be returned to him at the end of those 50 years. Also, sometimes people who are very short of money had to sell themselves into slavery, and all slaves were to be released after 50 years. Debts, I think I said that, debts were forgiven, slaves were set free, and it was a year when the land would be fallow, and they would depend on God for the blessing. And so as it happened when the people of God came into the land of promise, that they neglected to keep the Jubilee year for a time of added up to about 500 years. And so at the end of that time, God forced the people, according to Daniel, he forced them to have 700 years to make up for their neglect of the Jubilee year. And, you know, it's of course out of greed and avarice that it wasn't kept. And so what happened was they were taken over and they were sent to Babylon for that length of time. And Daniel was there. And he said that there would be, you know, after the 700 years, there was a release. The people, it was part of that reading in the first reading, it had something to do with that coming back, coming out, returning to Jerusalem and setting up the temple. And we know that things went awry even there. You know, they didn't obey God's law, and so there was the punishment for that. But out of that came a new jubilee, and that is Jesus. In Luke chapter 4, we remember that Jesus begins his ministry by preaching in the town where he was born, and he opened up, he, you know, picked up the scroll of Isaiah, and it wasn't a book that you just flip pages and say, oh, here's a chapter of da-da-da-da. He had to kind of scroll through it, and kind of amazing the way the people who read the scroll, I mean, it was a lot of skill to do that. But he picked out that his job description from Isaiah, and he talked about the Jubilee year, that the Messiah would come to release the captives, to set the prisoners free, to release those in bondage by the devil. And he said, this prophecy is fulfilled in your hearing, which is quite an astounding claim. And we know that people thought it was blasphemy. They were about to throw him over the roof, but off a cliff outside the village. And Jesus really gives us the Eucharist, and we see this in the gospel today, is a prefigurement of the Eucharist, where he multiplies the bread and the fishes and gives them food to eat. And we get now, in a few moments, we will get the very bread of life to do what Jesus says, you know, to liberate us from our slavery to sin, to free us from the bondage of the devil. And so the New Testament, of course, is the fulfillment of the Old Testament. And just as in the Old Testament, there was the Sabbath every 7 days. Seven is a very deep theological significance in the Old Testament, because the word seven also means to covenant ourselves with God. In this case, you know, it means to, like, a covenant would be marriage, and so we become sons and daughters of God through our baptism. And so it is a time of liberation. And it seems that especially in this time that we're going through with the politics and the way the world is, and so many terrible things happening, and it seems that the devil is really at work in the world doing his destruction, that we have hope in this Jubilee. And we rejoice that Jesus is going to come to us in a few moments to do what he says in Isaiah, to be the Messiah among us, to liberate us, to free us from sin, only if we are faithful to the gospel and all the laws and our relationship, and to really rejoice in this fact that we are sons and daughters of God, going to that great jubilee, which is the culmination of the reign of God, the kingdom of God come to us here in this world.